And, the SEC is not just a bunch of trolls that live under a bridge and come out and randomly mug stuff. They are theoretically attempting to protect the American population from the kind of people that have swarmed all over crypto in the past 5 years. And, you can't necessarily blame them for attempting to protect the American public from the kind of stuff that we have seen over and over and over and over again. So I do feel like there's a certain amount of superstition around the SEC is just like, oh my god, it's this terrible thing, they're just out to get us. And it's like, nah, actually they are attempting to do a job. And as long as you're doing something that doesn't directly get up their nose, at least in principle, it is possible to do, legitimate things in a legitimate way inside of the US regulatory frameworks that currently exist. It may be a lot easier after the election, but right now it is still more than possible. If Ethereum had a native way of, doing essentially credit rating functions, right, getting a really solid sense of whether this project is legit or not legit, and that function was working pretty well, and, fraud was kept down to a really, really low level, I think it would be much more irksome that the SEC had taken the kind of stance that they had at times. But the bottom line is that we haven't really done anything resembling a distributed credit rating agency. We haven't provided any mechanisms for protection and recompense for retail buyers, etc., etc. There is no large-scale systemic fraud suppression machinery that has emerged from the market, right? If you'd asked the Ethereum team, 7 or 8 years ago, so what about all the, potential for scammers? Almost certainly it would have been, well, what will happen is market-based mechanisms will arise and you will get free market competitive credit ratings, and that will screen out most of the stuff which would be problematic, and it will turn into one of the world's better regulated markets because obviously, crypto is efficient. The fact that we've seen a staggering market failure in our ability to provide credit rating and risk estimation and even project sanity checking, that is the thing that we really need to learn from, because that market failure is one of the things that has left crypto in the terribly shoddy condition that it's in right now, where we really are fighting this stuff an inch at a time when we should be cruising around taking 20% of the world's waste and turning it directly into dollars. I remember what Ethereum was like before there were any kind of organized scams. It was just like nerds talking about technology. It was really easy to get things done. Everybody was on the same side. And then there was a distinct wave, 17, 18, really into 19, when an entirely different kind of people arrived with an entirely different value proposition and an entirely different set of values. And then they basically took the freedom that the Ethereum team had worked hard to give to the people, and they stole that freedom right back off them one scam at a time. And now we're in a position where our inability to regulate against those people and use technology to keep them out of the space has resulted in folks like the SEC saying, well, look, that is clearly a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Of course it needs American law to come in there and make it sane. And, it's like, well, we kind of failed to self-organize a response to fraud, and now we act like it's a big deal that the government is organizing the response instead. What's the alternative? We're just going to allow the fraud to run indefinitely? At some point, somebody has to protect the ordinary citizens, and if they're not going to band together to defend themselves, you're going to wind up with government doing it for them. That is the unfortunate position that we are now in, and I think that is a clear lesson to libertarians that market failures do occur in areas which are collectively critical.